All right, we're back for another episode at New Beginnings Farmstead. The A-team is preparing some coffee. We're on a tight schedule here, so we're moving on. It's going to be Ryan and I discussing what do you think?
Trailers.
More trailers. All
More
right.
trailers.
So one of the things we've talked about is the necessity to have trailers that have both capacity, right, both in the axle and the construction methods that how they're built, and ramps versus
A full drop gate or no ramps at all.
or no ramps at all, just flat top trailers, right? So we could use those as well. Looks like the team's entering back into the dining area, into
Better late than ever.
into the studio. Julie secured her John Deere coffee, kind of potent, but not the same horsepower kick that a Kubota coffee would have. And
Is there anything in that cup?
it's probably just water, right?
I'd like to just be clear that the capacity of the cup is large. Oh, thank you. I knew I had people that did that. The capacity of the cup is large, but my capacity of my bladder is small.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I guess that'll be the topic, bladder size.
Bladder size. I have a bladder the size of a camel.
I do too.
The
But
camel.
when I got it,
the
I mean, I
outside
can
of the
hold
camel?
it for a really long time, but
Wait, the size of the camel itself or the size of the camel's bladder?
The size of the camel. Yeah, I actually bring
And
it
the shape
with me
of
when
a
I go
camel?
places. Yes.
Yeah, once you break the suit,
Oh.
It's like a
Like a
trailer.
little
I tow
camel.
my bladder with me.
Oh, like a bag on the outside?
Yeah, kind of. But not really.
Oh, Elisa just sent me a text and said, be
I did
quiet
not.
and
Stop talking about trailers.
I did
No
not. I'm
more
texting
trailers.
Turner.
No more trailers.
say, be quiet coming in.
Yes.
Is that what you tell him? Doesn't care about the first day of school.
I already asked him.
All right, it's already rolling, so just edit all this out.
I say
Okay,
keep it in.
Blooper reel.
Okay.
All right, are you ready?
We have another blooper reel from earlier
Oh, I don't.
Wow, what's that supposed to mean?
when you screamed obscenities.
I deleted that.
It was only half an obscenity.
Okay. All right. Welcome to Control Yourself.
There's a lot of strobe lighting happening.
Oh, because the light's still on.
the
I
lights on, but you want it on.
I love it, but it's look at how crisp we. Okay,
At some point, we'll record today.
it looks
Okay,
crisp.
ready?
Now it looks like Ryan
Video-
and I are in the dark closet.
But it doesn't look like that. Like when
Okay,
all right,
still
should we
strobing.
turn on one. Isn't that what we did?
One.
I'm just saying, if it's still gonna be strobing, we might as well be
I think
crisp.
it's the kitchen light. That's,
Oh, see, look at him. Oh.
I don't think people complain. They're here for content. They're not here to look. Most of our viewers, all three of them,
Margaret,
Egidio,
Ryan's mom.
Right.
Zia, Emily.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
From Billy Joe. She watches.
Oh, see?
Colorado.
Yeah.
So 4. Wow.
we're getting up there.
All right, be prepared
almost
because
got
you have
Ryan-
to do
Ryan
most of
in
the
a
talking with
mankini.
solar.
About what?
The solar project.
What's
no,
on?
you
talk
have
about
quite
how-
a bit to say.
I do, but that'll come after.
Well, just go ahead. You start.
Okay. Welcome to another episode of the A-Team at New Beginnings Farmstead.
Again. Go ahead.
Take 2.
All right.
There's the marker, like Julie wants.
It's true.
Or
All right. Welcome to another episode of the A-Team at New Beginnings Farmstead. I'm Elisa, and we have Brian, Julie, Jeff, and Egidio. And today we are going to talk about the solar project that we have here on the farm. So, Egidio, go ahead. Take it away.
there's a solar project
On the farm.
on the farm.
On the farm.
Thank you for joining us in this episode.
Go ahead.
Well, what do you want to start? How do you
Go
want to
ahead.
start?
I mean,
this?
it was right at the beginning. Start at the beginning. How
Okay.
did it come to
Why?
be?
What was it?
All right.
What was there before?
Well,
Why is it
so
there?
yeah, we had and we've had a couple of questions about that, especially from those people that show up during the weddings and stuff. And so there was a big 20-acre hayfield back there that was used just for hay, specifically for hay. Has kind of a rolling,
It did. It
beautiful
was- it was
view
a
from
big
back
hill.
there. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Initially, there was thought about possibly building a house back there, but
And that's where Ryan had his wedding ceremony.
right, there was a couple back there, right, that had it. And
Oh, you weren't the only one.
I was the last
The
one.
last one.
the last one,
There was a couple before.
that was it.
Yeah. It was just too far away. It was the have to bring people back and forth. It was just
Yeah, it was
too long.
probably a good 8 minutes on tractor with the wagon and stuff back there.
For
Most-
most weddings, it was
yeah.
too far away. For my wedding, it wasn't because pretty much everybody drove to the field
Everybody
anyway.
drove, and everybody had those lifted pickup trucks, and they drove right through
Right.
the mud. And,
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
They drove all the way to the field.
and they had that thing on the back of the hitches with the.
Oh, yeah, those
The thing that-
bumper knots.
Yeah.
Okay. So
What
go
is-
ahead.
Yeah, that's
What
they
does that
were.
mean?
That's
It
what
means
they
they were
were.
tough
That's what they
people.
called.
No, what's the word that you just used?
Bumper nuts.
I don't know what that means.
Google it.
I'm not going to.
So go
They
ahead.
don't fit
It's
in
like-
the Yankee.
Go ahead,
Playwright,
Egidio.
man, can't even- Anyway, you
focused.
might have to edit all this out, but so yeah, 20-acre hayfield. For the first couple of years, we had the weddings back there, held the ceremonies, and the former owner used to actually put these big 4 or 5 foot round hay bales in the back, and he'd come with the tractor, leave a few for our sheep. You know,
For
there were-
decorations.
yeah, and for decorations, that's true too. But mostly would throw one in there for the sheep, and it was a big 1,000-pound bale or whatever it was, pretty heavy. So at one point, we received numerous letters from companies asking about solar. It was when, at the time, Governor Cuomo had an initiative to, I'm going to get it wrong, 50-30, I think it was called. 50% of the energy used in New York has to be produced within 30 years, I think, or 20 by
2030.
something like that.
Produce renewable energy. you're
Renewable
saying?
energy,
Mhm.
yeah. So we got approached by we got 3 letters from 3 different companies. I started doing a little bit of research on each 3 of them. One of them, Cypress Creek, was the one that seemed to have most of the market at that time, mostly in the South, but they were now coming up to New York. And we would have been one of the first sites that they went to, especially in Marbletown. We were actually the first site, the legislation to use large scale array solar, I think is what it's called, large array or large
Yeah,
scale.
large scale solar.
Large scale solar.
Mhm.
Kind of came through there in this process. So we looked at them, negotiated a price per acre on a lease, and negotiated it. I think it's a 25-year lease with a 5-year option to renew, and then they either remove everything or they renegotiate a new contract. So we opted. It was perfect. We weren't really able to use the field for hay, and although we tried hay in it, it wasn't something that we wanted to do anymore. So this came. The big changing point for us was that they were going to develop the property. They were going to put in a wider road, put in drainage, really kind of make it a little bit better. The truth is that it looked pretty good from a project management point of view. We had big meetings initially on site when we were going to break ground, and everybody was there, the landscapers and the engineers and electricians and representatives from Central Hudson, the power utility here. And it looked like this was it. This was going to be great. And all along we were told this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. And they showed us pictures of other places and how the roads were developed and the drainage and the swales and the landscaping and bushes, and people were great and everybody happy and song and dance. And
Oh,
yeah, there was a lot of that.
There's rainbows and unicorns.
Rainbows and unicorns. And so a couple of things happened along the way. So actually during the process, we went to the town. They submitted the application on behalf of our farm, but they were actually the ones that went to the meetings. The first representative they sent really didn't have a good handle. And I know you're going to comment about this, but didn't really have a good handle on what the project was all about. And in 2 of the meetings, I actually had to stand up and explain more about what the project was going to be about than this poor guy showed up. I mean, it's almost like, hey, what are you doing? All right, get down to Marltown and tell them we're putting the solar
Yeah,
field
and
in.
actually they ended up at one point, they were not even sending somebody. So they would just call Egidio and be like, oh, would you mind going and talking about this? So
So they
and this was
usually
Cypress Creek that was.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they usually they had a good team of attorneys. They were pretty solid. I felt bad for the first guy because I think he was just kind of pushed into it. He didn't have a lot of answers on how they're
On
going to do
anything.
stuff. The engineers had to draw very detailed prints about the whole thing. I learned a lot along the way because they'd hand me this stuff, and I didn't do a lot of road construction over my years, and
it'd be here.
Looking
Here
at
are
it
the
and-
plans. Go explain this to the town board.
so I
Good luck.
kind of researched some stuff, and a lot of it was road construction and how. And so anyway, so we get the permits, everything's good to go. They have a small window of opportunity to start to remove, I think a total of 7.1 acres of trees between sides of the road going up and a small piece of the field that they needed to take down in order to get the best sunlight. So I think we got the approval early part of the year in 18, right? 18 they started, right? 18.
Yeah.
Yep. 18. You
Yeah,
got married in 17.
it was February because everything had to be down before March 31st
Right, for the end of March.
because we have the brown-nosed bat on the property, which is endangered.
Bats,
and that is
salamanders,
well, we
eagles,
have
right?
the
Yeah.
bat, which is on the endangered list, and that is their mating season. So that's what the trees had to come down before March 31st.
And it was interesting to me that during these meetings, they actually had people there, environmentalists, local environmentalists, that had big concerns over the habitats that we would be disturbing the construction.
They
So-
sent a team of archaeologists from
Virginia.
Virginia twice to the property, and they spent days doing soil samples.
And that was one thing that happened with you during your wedding ceremony. Right? Remember driving up there, Jeff? We would drive up there, and there were these holes. There were like 3 or 4 inch diameter holes that were down 2-3 feet, right, in the field, and they tried to plug them. Some of them, most of them, but they
Not
had this.
enough of them.
But they had.
Oh, did people fall in?
Well,
Ryan.
the tractor going up. Remember the wagon?
Did you fall in?
Yeah.
No.
Ryan fell in the hole.
There would have been a little common sense used in all of that. I understand what they were doing, but go do it somewhere else. Clearly, this is the way it is for
Well,
a
it was
reason.
easy. It was a nice little path. It was
right.
great.
It's
Right.
perfect
Oh, let's do it right
grass.
here so somebody can break their ankle.
Yeah, they. It was interesting to see the progress, but they went all over. Then they had to prepare a report to see what they found as far as.
Well, we did discover like what was interesting for me is that we do have the brown nosed bat. We do not have the bog turtle. They spent weeks doing research to see. I guess that's an important species as well, the bog turtle, which we don't have any. And you went to one meeting where there was an entire group of women who wanted to save the salamanders
Yeah,
on
salamander
the rail trail.
Spotted salamanders.
Yes,
They were very
Yeah.
concerned about the salamanders,
Yeah.
but we
Well-
weren't going over in that area.
in that part of the solar field where it meets the O&W rail trail back there, that is wet.
Yep.
You know, so there was a big concern about there damaging that little seasonal stream, which is dry most of the year. But yeah, so there was that concern, and then there was discussion about an eagle's nest right across the
Right.
entrance to the property. Over
And
the
somebody
Esopus.
actually went and stayed there.
yeah,
They for 2 weeks.
not in the
to
nest.
Right.
For clarification, not
he
in
had
the
a
nest.
duck blind that he put up across the street to watch the hunting pattern
Yeah.
of the bald eagle, which he was fortunately hunting in that direction and instead of that direction because
Wow.
it would have come to a screeching halt, and the company had already invested a tremendous amount of money at that point.
So they had the holes back there, and the archaeologists did their thing. All the reports go forward. There was some concerns by the neighbors on the visibility of the panels, and there was a bunch of stuff that came out of those meetings. But everybody had.
There were
an
some
opportunity-
neighbors who were pretty upset. They thought that there would be noise.
Yeah, there was noise. I mean,
No,
it's a construction.
noise all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Didn't you have to have a pole in the center of the field and they looked around
Yeah.
the
So
surrounding area?
surprisingly, they had to do, and I think I'm getting it wrong, but it's close. It was like 2 or 3 miles away. They had to do, the engineering firm had to provide documentation that they, from a distance of 2 or 3 miles, weren't able to see the panels. Now, we can't see the panels from anywhere. I think 2 of the neighbors claimed that they could see them from their porch in the back, but there's, a bunch of acreage between the panels. I mean, obviously they're solar panels. The concern obviously was that they were too reflective and may provide, glare or, sunlight glaring into their homes and stuff, but they're not that way. But the company did agree. Listen, no problem. After it's built, we'll come back. We'll put up vegetation in the form of trees. Whatever you guys want, we can do. So that did happen. We can finish up with that. But so once they started the project, they sent in one of those feller bunchers, is what they call them, on skids, and we have pictures and videos of that. And the guy came out of Boonville, Lowville, New York. They dropped it off on a Tuesday, and they picked it up on a Wednesday. And amazing. This guy was absolutely crazy. The stuff he did. You got to see the stuff he did with this machine. I would never have even thought it was possible, but he just went in there, grabbed these trees and collected them like stalks of celery and dropped them down to these piles in the back and along the road. And they had already marked every place with the line of disturbance stake, so they knew they couldn't go outside of those boundaries. And that was it. Like Tuesday, it was a John Deere unit, I think it was. They dropped it off, and Wednesday afternoon they picked it up.
What's John Deere?
I get that. That was the cue. That was
Team John Deere.
so the time they came and dropped off, they picked up that unit, that feller buncher, because they had another project around here somewhere, I think up in Catskill by your
Catskill.
place. They dropped it off there. They also delivered a skidder, log skidder, but it had the big claws in the back, like a bunk skidder, I guess they call it. And this thing was monstrous. It had big chains on it, and again, the same operator, and he did stuff with this thing that I just don't. He must have been seat belted or harnessed in, because he was taking it vertical a couple of times. If you have the videos, we'll show them now. It's crazy what he did. He would grab these piles that he made with the feller buncher and drag them out, and sometimes they were so stuck together that the front of the machine would go vertical. It would just be, he would be looking straight up, and he would just keep, I don't know what he did. Yeah, the video shows it all. And so he piled it. They were going to chip the wood up. Remember, I had to send a letter in requesting that they don't. And they said, well, listen, you signed this letter, you take all of it. We're not limiting it.
Boy, did we take all of it.
We're moving it to the places you need. We need 3 locations, but that's it. So one, they moved just outside of the solar field location in the woods. We had to clear an area.
Oh, it was awful.
So
It was awful.
we actually
in
went
one
in the
day,
weekend
right?
before.
It looked like a tornado went up the driveway. It was such a disaster.
Yeah, we cleared. It was you, me, and your dad.
Yep.
And we cleared that area so they could drop the piles there. We used the small field, and we all ended up clearing that out. Right. We
That's
had
where
the
you
skid
learned how to
steers
use the skid
skid
steer,
steer.
right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So we had that. We had the log.
It took years to clean up that mess.
You said that was
Well,
Years.
years.
back there.
we
Yeah.
we didn't jump right on it
Right,
either.
right.
I mean,
But it was literally years, right? We just got through all that wood, and we just finished splitting all that wood.
We still have some
We
of that
still have
wood.
wood
We
there,
still
yeah.
have
Yeah.
some of that wood.
It's still out
cut.
there.
It's all
Crazy.
cut up, and then the other pile was in the parking lot that he came down. When he did the road, he would bring it up from down here, up the driveway to the parking lot.
But
and then
what
from
a
that down.
mess!
But it
With
was
all
just
the mud
piles
and the
of trees,
tracks.
and
oh my god!
he drove the pile he was carrying on top of the pile that he had. So they were going vertical. It was crazy. And so, again, a big mess. We had to cut through it, and we were on the excavator picking it apart and then pulling it to the side and then cutting it. But a lot of firewood, and we burned the brush. A lot of that brush that we had, we burned. Anything that was salvageable for firewood we used, but everything else we just burned it. We had to clear the parking lot pretty quick.
yeah.
Because we had weddings coming up, so we needed that space. The field, we kind of left it because the grass grew tall enough to cover most of it, so no one really noticed it there. And in the back in the woods, we just left it and cut into it when we could. Some of it was already rotted by the time we got to it, though. It was already buried in the water. But so then they came in, and the crew came in, and the first thing they did was fence it. And it took them 2 days, 2.5 days. Crew came up from Virginia, and they had 2 machines, a skid steer with an auger, and one they brought cement mixers in, and boom, fence was up. Unbelievable.
They had
how
to put
fast.
that stuff in the ground. What was it? It was like rubber. It was like went all through the woods.
Oh, silt fence.
It's like a catch fence.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was one of my
Yeah.
complaints, that they didn't come back and clean up after
Yeah,
themselves.
they grabbed most of it, but some of it was laid buried there until we took pictures and said, "Hey, this stuff is still here."
Well, there was a lot of that, and that's what I was not happy with. Some
Yeah.
of the things
So
that
one of the first
they
things that
weren't
ended up
doing.
happening was, because of how fast they did it, one of the things we admittedly talked about, was leaving space enough to get to the rail trail. And the people that were here were like, yeah, no problem. We'll take care of it. On the prints, it said to do it this way. The people that were here were not necessarily the ones we spoke to. So 2 days later, I go back there, the fence is all up, and it gave us 4 feet between the tree line and the fence. So we could not get any equipment around it to get to the rail trail, access to the opening back there. So that was the first encounter that we had with them. And, it was one of these things like, okay, well, we need it. We have a wedding coming up. We need access to the O&W rail trail. So we're going to start taking it down. And you said, no, that's not our job.
Mhm.
We got the person on the phone, and the guy who did the road construction, his crew sent somebody up with a small excavator and a chainsaw and cut
well,
it.
the first time I cut it because they weren't going to. They were like, "Well, we can't do anything about it," and I went back there and cut it down.
Well, the tree that come down.
Not the tree, the fence.
Oh, the fence.
Remember she moved the fencing, and
Oh,
we,
that was-
we moved it right back.
Oh,
Right.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were like, well, too bad. We started construction. And I said, no, you are well aware. Look at your emails. You're well aware that we gave them a list of weddings. We have to be able to get to the rail trail because that's where I take the bride and groom for pictures. And they said, I know you think it's funny.
It's funny.
It was
And
funny.
they-
It was
Strongly
funny.
worded,
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, because two places you had to cut it.
Yeah. So I went back there. I said to you, give me the pliers.
Yeah, I remember we were in the small field, and you came up and you said, "Do you have a pair of pliers?" I go, "Yeah, I carry my love. Give me the pliers, please." I said, "Do you?
No.
Where are you going with
They
those?"
were well aware we had a wedding. They were well aware I needed access. And they said, oh, well. And I said, you're not kidding. Give me the pliers. And I went back there and I cut their fence down.
Yep.
And then they came,
And we
they
put it right
complained.
back up.
Yeah,
No,
it
we
went-
didn't.
It went back up.
Because they complained. And I said, oh, well. And then they put it back up.
They said, "Don't touch their stuff."
And I said, oh, well. And the next weekend I cut it down again. Do something about your fence or check your emails. Right? So
no more Christmas cards from Cypress Creek.
no.
Oh, believe you me, there's no Christmas cards from Cypress Creek. I can name the staff who won't be getting a Christmas card.
So I actually forgot about that whole fence thing, but yeah, that now that you mentioned, it, I do recall it. We all went like this, huh? I wonder where she's going.
Follow me.
She gave me the pliers; they're all covered in mud and stuff. Like, oh, okay. So yeah, so that happened, and then the fence wasn't wide enough, so they came with a guy. I felt bad for this kid, really, on this excavator, and he was able to pull the trees out and make a path for our mules to get back there, and so that happened. But under construction, the road was being dug up, and we still had weddings, and we told them, you can't do anything past Friday noontime. Like, that's it. Shut it down. There were a couple of times we showed up at Friday noontime and they were still running the equipment, and we were like, no,
we're
you're
done.
gone. And so, they were on their timeline. I get it. But it
they
wasn't
were
all
well
unicorns.
aware.
Wasn't all unicorns and
They were
rainbows.
well aware of when there were weddings. We had given them everything a year in advance, and they agreed in writing and emails. And then that's where the issues came in, because there was a lot of turnover in staff. So there'd be somebody new and saying, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And it's, hold on. And I'd have to look through 200 emails and find what was agreed on, because we learned very quickly, as soon as they came here and had a meeting, to then send a follow-up email just recapping what was agreed on. And they would respond to it, and there, we got it.
Can anyone else hear?
No.
You can pick up on it at all. It's all bringing back bad memories, bad times.
Little
Yeah.
twitch.
A little bit, yeah. So as the project progressed, they put the stakes in the ground. There was a big crew that came up probably over the course of a month that just was responsible for putting in the panels, supports for the panels. And then they brought the electrical crew in to do all the connections. Overall, pretty efficient operation. The delivery was difficult because there was 30 full-size tractor trailers driving up and down the driveway, dusty conditions. The road wasn't finished yet. The house and the barns were covered in dirt, like in dust. And so, they had to do what they had to do. We recognize that. But in some cases, the road wasn't as wide as they told us it was going to be. Remember, we went out there. They had to come back, make it wider. They had to move some of the rock. They didn't put in proper drainage or swale. And, the first 2 or 3 storms, if you remember, the entrance to this property, it was the silt had shot across 209 and it was covered. It covered 209. And, we're telling these guys in the back that are working on the road, you better get out front because you got
they weren't believing us when we said it's going across the highway. And they were like, that can't be. And I said, I will take pictures and send it to you. And then also it was flooding the Blue Barn.
Right.
So all the mud was coming down and damaging everything that was it was 4 inches of wet mud coming
when
into
we built
the Blue Barn.
we had about 6 inches, and then when they came in, they couldn't go down any further. So they went up with the road base and they basically raised it to the same level. Because there was no drainage put in at the time, any surface water went lowest point, and that met right inside the
Mhm.
blue barn, and that was a problem for you and for them
And
apparently.
again,
For
with
them.
the not believing us. Why would I lie? Why would I lie
Yeah,
about
there
mud
were-
coming into the barn?
After every storm, I would walk the driveway, take pictures, send them to him again, and it was definitely an issue because although the first project manager that was here was reasonable and understanding and tried to work with us, he didn't make it to the completion of the project. Right?
Mhm.
They moved him, or he quit, or something. We don't really
There
know
was a
what happened,
lot
but
of turnover.
there was a lot of turnover. I mean, these guys, especially the crews that came in. I mean, we had a wedding on the one morning. They were coming in, getting set up, and they had that big 400 excavator with the hammer on the back,
480.
the 480 up top, and there was no way I was keeping him off that thing.
No.
I said to him, it's a rental. That's not our rental. He's like, yeah, okay, get away. And he found the key. I don't know where these excavator guys know where the keys are, or you had your own.
I had my own key.
And he started it up, and all of a sudden I'm hearing he's got a big old grin on his face. The bride's coming out looking like, what's that noise?
I had to try it.
He did. He broke up a couple of big rocks in the back, and you had a smile on your face all day long.
Mhm.
Well, you wanted that rock moved. That's the easiest way to move it. Make a big rock smaller.
So it was interesting. The whole project. I know we're kind of making the video
They
longer,
they had to bury the electric they had to encase it in cement.
Because they couldn't go deep enough.
Right.
Yeah.
But in the process they moved a lot of the rock, and they moved it, and they never cleaned it. So that was one of the
right.
problems.
So what happened was they actually hammered the rock out to get down to 18 or 16 inches.
Right.
Put in 2 4-inch Schedule 80 conduits and a 2-inch conduit for the communication line. They never put in pull boxes along the way, which the first thing I said when they started doing the work, I go, it says the plans call for like these intermittent pull boxes so you can pull it and then connect it and pull it again. So you're not pulling, 1,000 feet at a time. And they're like, no, we do it all the time. We got it. I'm like, ooh, man, okay, you got this. And surprised and impressed at the same time. And so they put the pipe down, and then they poured concrete. So all the leftover stone that was there was just piled
and this
alongside
is
of the trench.
where they were supposed to clean up and do landscaping, and that was another thing this was towards the end with, again, many staff members later, and they refused to clean it. And I said, this is your mess, not my mess. And
So-
we had to contact the main headquarters for this company and have some words.
I didn't have any words.
I
didn't have any words.
I had
so then
many
they,
words.
so they ended up trying to pull this wire, this big, whatever it is, MCM, whatever I don't even know, cable coming through it. And it would break. The line pulling it would break. It was too long of a run. And they were using 5-gallon buckets of this electrical wire loop to get it all slicked up and stuff. And it just wasn't. And so they finally got it down to the main connection pole down here. They energized a line. And remember that night they blew it. There was a big short right by the sheet, and it just blew.
Oh my God.
The whole
poor
ground
sheet.
exploded.
Huge
And,
explosion right next to the sheet.
That was. I still got pictures of that. Yeah, and the whole thing just went up. It shattered the conduit, blew the concrete. Impressive. And so then they had to dig it all up again, and put a splice in, and so it was a lot of work for them. And again, I know what they're trying to do, take some shortcuts, but wow. And anyway, so they go back there, they do their thing. A couple of other issues pop up here and there, mostly due to landscaping at the time. They go to we complain about the amount of water that's coming down the driveway. They say, hey, that water's not our water. We did the solar field in the back, has nothing to do with it. I said, whoa. You made the road bigger. You changed the pitch of the ground. We didn't have that problem when we bought. Our road was perfect when we bought this property. There was nothing wrong with this road. And so finally, one of the engineers from the main company sent down a set of prints and said, well, here's some options. Well, the road construction crew, who did the right thing, and he did the right thing every time, said, I'll take care of it. He took one set of the prints, and he came down, he hammered the swale out, he put in the catch basins, he ran the pipe, the conduits, or the culverts underneath. And that's the time when the project manager sent an email to both myself and Lisa and said, hey, I know it turns out you guys were talking to such and such, and that he completed a project that wasn't supposed to be done, and it was never approved at any level. He did it on his own. In the future, please don't talk to anybody on the property. And what did you say?
Well, I can't really say right here what I said, but it was to the effect of, "You're not going to tell me who to talk to on my property." So there was quite the explosion over that.
So he actually came up from Virginia.
He got in his car and drove up after
He came up,
after
yeah.
my scathing email. How
Yeah.
dare he tell me who I can and cannot talk to?
And he was a good, I mean, I liked him. He was personable. He tried. I mean, he wasn't swinging the hammer, tightening the screwdriver type of thing, but it was just one of these things where he was doing what he had to do. And I'll tell you what, it was just something that he needed to get done, and he did it. But like anything else, it's one of these things where we're just plugging along, trying to get this project finished, and every hurdle, right? So at the end,
there were some other issues with some other staff. They had, as for part of the landscaping, we were questioning like, well, you haven't done this, this, and this, and they would say, well, that was never in the plans. And I said, well, I have an email, and then I found the email where you can choose A, B, or C, and I chose whatever. And apparently he didn't realize that, but had spent the afternoon. He was cursing me out on the property because I was saying, no, this is what the agreement was. And you weren't too happy with him.
No,
so there was many times where we had to reach out to the
So we had the new project manager and the road guy.
This person can't come back.
Showed up. The road guy was decent. He kept saying, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. The other guy kept saying, show me where it's in writing. Otherwise, we're not doing it. And so I called the company, the main headquarters, and spoke to somebody. I said, listen, just so you know, he is no longer allowed on my property. I don't care what you got to do. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to happen. Like, please don't put me in a position where you're going to find out what I'm going to have to do. Don't do it. And they didn't. And as far as I know, he moved on to a different project. So, but the last part of this was that finally they're wrapping up. She said they sent this new guy who kind of took over as the maintenance guy, who really didn't know much about, wasn't involved in the project, really wasn't like a solar guy. They're like, hey, take the chair here and answer that phone. And one of the first phone calls he got was from her. And he came down here and he's like, hey, how you doing? You know, and we had been through this pretty lengthy and difficult process with this company. So she was already kind of bitter about the whole thing. She's like, this rock, this tree, this thing's got to go. We got to clear by over here by the poles. And the guy goes, oh, okay. And he showed up the next day with rakes and shovels and a weed whacker,
and
did it all himself. And finally he's like, listen, I can't move all this dirt like by hand. And she's like, okay, someone's got to move the dirt. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to call the other company, see if they can come back. And so the one guy called me, is like, hey, Jid, do you mind if I can send a guy? I just don't have the equipment. Do you mind if I use your equipment? And I go, no, bro, I've seen your guys use your equipment. I'm not letting you use my equipment. No,
They were rough.
Yeah, they were pretty rough. And so they sent people down, and that's the one where he hit a ground nest with the weed whacker.
Oh,
Remember that?
Poor guy.
I don't think he's ever been stung in his life, and he was nailed.
Yeah, he got it quite a bit.
So, but they cleared it all out, and they made it right. They put in.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few things like there's dead trees, which there's still a few dead trees, and were pointed out like these are your wires bringing your solar down, and there's a dead tree standing there, and their response to this day is, "Oh, call us when it falls," instead of just taking it out at the time, which is pretty stupid. But there's been many times where, just recently, there was a tree down on the wire. And we knew because you called to tell them that the wire's laying on the driveway. And 2 days later, somebody shows up, and I pulled in after work, and he goes, just so you know, there's a wire down. I go, yeah, we told you the wire's down. And it stayed down for like a week. Nobody showed up to fix it. They're losing the power.
Yeah, we had the ice storm, took down a big tree, took down the wires. Yeah. The electricity wasn't even turned on with the solar. And somebody had backed up a truck and trailer, one of those low boys with the excavator, and the excavator boom caught the communication fiber wire between the poles and ripped it right out. And because we have machinery here, I immediately called the company and said, listen, just so you know, that wasn't me. I had nothing to do with it. And they're like, no, the driver already called us and told us he hit the wire. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Strangely enough, they did contact us recently and asked if we would give them a reference.
Yeah.
Do you guys regret doing this project?
No.
It seems like you're extremely disappointed.
We are. We're disappointed because, I'm old school, handshake, type of deal is a handshake type of deal.
But we did have, thank God, we did have everything in writing.
But
Well,
you're
not
still-
everything.
You're still dealing with the driveway, though.
Well, that's
Mm-hmm.
the thing. Like, not everything, right? So the guy, going up the driveway, they talked about all this landscaping that they were going to do, right? All the
Right.
bushes.
They didn't
and
do that.
They didn't do that, right? So we're still mowing some of that.
Mhm.
Part of it is, oh yeah, we're going to mow everything for you. Well, they're going to mow inside the fence where the solar panels are. So there was things that and this is what we've recommended to other people that have called us and said, hey, would you do it again? And we
I
say,
wouldn't.
yes, I would do
I
it
would
again.
not, and I have nothing good to say about the company.
I would do it again with the same company, but I would absolutely put everything in writing.
Right.
Everything, every little bit. Not a
Well, there
discussion.
are things in writing. Anytime it
No.
snowed 3 inches, they're supposed to plow. They don't.
Yeah, it doesn't. But there are things like the fence, right? You're going to leave a space. It should have been. There's 25 foot between the tree line
Right,
and
very
the fence
small.
line.
Very
Specific.
specific.
Right.
Very
Right.
specific.
Because
Like,
there was a lot of
you know.
vagueness, and then there were discussions about the vagueness. Most of them were in emails, so we could refer to that because
But
they,
even
they
in-
did agree in an email. So there you go.
when it says it'll be landscaped, well, what does that
Right.
mean?
Exactly.
Right? So,
What does that mean?
Right. So that's the stuff that we recommended.
Mhm.
And I remember, you were talking to apparently the wife of the owner of the property or whatever it was down south. And she asked you, would you do it again? You said, I would do it, but
I didn't say I'd do it
everything-
again.
everything.
I'm not happy with how anything turned
Well,
out.
The truth is it's better than it was.
Doesn't mean we wouldn't have just come up with something else to do with the property, because we would.
I would not be haying it.
No, I wouldn't be
Tell me
haying
right
it either.
now, I wouldn't be haying it.
No,
Be a
no, I
pig
wouldn't be
farm.
haying it. That's
But
right.
in understanding these projects and these companies, there was a lot at that time. You guys were right at the beginning, especially in this area for these solar projects. And the guidelines and all of that were still new to everyone in the area, including these companies. And they come in and they make promises because they want to build these solar fields as fast as possible. The faster they can get them up and running, the faster they're going to start getting return on their
Right.
investment.
Yep.
And they had 3 or 4 other projects in close proximity to here that they were doing.
Yep.
So they want to move their contractors from one site to another site to another site. And the way these project managers look at it is get it installed, get the power flowing, and we'll deal with everything
Right,
else
we'll
later.
deal with everything. That's exactly, absolutely, you are correct.
But in dealing with everything later, there's a lot of things that go overlooked.
Yeah, and
Because they are trying to move from site to site to site as
Right.
quickly as possible.
Again, that's why everything has to be spelled
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Right.
but also
Exactly.
not only that, but throughout this entire process, 2 years worth of once a month, he was going to the planning board and the zoning board and doing the work for their staff who had no idea what was going on. And they counted on him to do it. That was, and I said how many times, why is he doing your job?
Control.
Yeah, no.
Right.
But why are you there for 4 hours
Control.
once a month?
Control.
You wanted control?
Yeah. I wanted to
Well,
make sure that it was
right.
done right. Yeah.
It's
Okay,
still
but
your
you're not
property.
an engineer.
Yeah, but it's still your
and that's
property that you
fine.
want it to
But
be
don't
done right.
count on
Exactly.
him. Don't send the plans to him and
Right.
expect him to do the job, because you're not sending someone on a plane from Virginia. That's not his job.
Specific.
My job is to do what you tell me to do.
With a smile.
And with that,
Well, no, I mean, the other component of this, I think, is, when we agreed to the solar, one of the things obviously was the monetary value in the lease, but also we felt good about using the land for that purpose. One, because the town already told us that we couldn't use, and I'll use the word, the best quality land. Anything that was deemed a certain quality couldn't be used
Right.
for solar because they wanted to continue to use it for farming. So our land was not of that quality. It was designed, it was used for hay. And so we were kind of feeling, all right, well, that's good too. If it's not a, grade A dirt, then we'll go with using it for the grade B. And it's nice. I mean, the selling point that a lot of these people said during these meetings was, you'll have the quietest neighbors ever in that 20-acre lot. It's true, right? There's no sound. There's no
Right.
generator running. There's nothing, no lights, nothing. I know a couple of the neighbors were upset about some of the panels and stuff like that, but the company did the right thing and they put up, I think, 12 or 14 trees along the one side of the fence line. And as they grow, they'll start to actually take over some of that part. But, there's been a couple of things that have, again, been difficult on our side of it, but the swale continues to be a problem. I know, somebody wants to talk about the amount of work the road's been done on, but
That's
solar's here to
another
stay,
whole
right? But,
different podcast.
yeah,
is
but
that
I mean,
road.
the road is here. The solar's here to stay. right?
And can you speak to its production?
So it's designed to be a 2 megawatt solar site. I don't
think
know.
you can speak to its production.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I don't know what it's
Yeah,
producing.
it's supposed to be 2 megawatts is what.
And
it's
are you an
designed.
off taker?
We are not. So they give us they pay for the lease of the land, and there's a small reduction in the electrical cost to us through Central Hudson as the provider. The poles that we have out here, 3 of them are customer service poles, or they belong to the company, which is now traded hands and went from Cypress Creek to Generate Capital. So they're the ones that actually,
Which always happens.
yeah, they sell off. They produce
Immediately.
So usually the way I see it now is Cypress goes in, gets it ready, flips
Yes.
the switch and says, okay, it's operational, buy from us. And they move on and
Yes.
then turn it over to another one. So
So who's benefiting from the production?
Generate.
What are they doing with it?
Well, they're
Supplement the
selling
grid.
it to Central Hudson.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. That's so one of the things that made this location appealing to them is that they can tie in directly to the grid,
Correct.
the primary grid here at Central Hudson. So some places that are off on a back road somewheres, it's difficult because they
Yes.
don't have. I guess they're
The transmission lines aren't close enough.
That's it.
Yes.
Transmission lines. Yeah. So I know that that's part of the consideration on it, but the road is bigger, and for the most part, it's a lot better. I mean, it's wider than it
Right.
was before. We still had drainage issues, one that I know we'll talk about, and overall, it's a great project. It's quiet back there.
But now the
I mean,
neighbors
so,
also benefit, correct?
to
they
some
get-
degree, yeah, they
don't
can.
they get
Yeah,
a
I think they're all
discount?
eligible for it. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So, but again, that's something that the solar company took care
They
of. at the
benefit in
beginning,
that
so-
we did not put a pig farm in that they
Well,
could
but
smell
they also got
24/7.
a reduction in solar in cost, right?
I have no
from
idea.
Central Hudson.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're within a certain
Yeah,
radius,
they
you
get
get, there's a
they can
reduction.
reduction.
reduct.
Yeah.
Get
So
reduced
you're
their
welcome,
bill.
Yeah.
neighbors.
Yeah, they're supposed to. So, but I think that that connection and stuff. And we're all about renewable energy. We try to anyway. And but this is, and again, financially it benefits us because of the lease. But in whatever it's going to be now,
20 more years.
20 more years. Well, I won't have to
What
worry
does it
about
say? Check out.
Right. The technology is going to change so much between now and then.
Yeah.
It may not even be the most desirable way to do this. So.
Right.
Or they could renegotiate as is and reinstall new panels.
That's true.
There hasn't been any major malfunctions other than the wires or things
No.
coming down to this point.
Nothing yet.
No.
No.
So a lot will change between now
No.
and then.
Yeah, they did modify the initial plans to do some sort of a storage system back there so that they can sell it at a higher rate.
Yes.
The high demand time frame or something.
Yep.
But that's on their part.
They could
so-
supplement at peak times on the grid,
Yeah.
which is at higher demand and higher cost, of course, and then store it at their off-peak times.
So they usually hire a company. The ones that we've seen come out of New Jersey, usually crews of 3 to 5 people. This last one was 6 people that came up. 3 mowers, was a 1 heavy duty 0 turn, and then 2 of them were like tracked 0 turns,
Yep.
which were more like brush cutters than mowers.
Yep.
And they were covered. They had raincoats on.
And you would think, just put our sheep in there. Right?
True.
We've talked
Yeah.
about that. The sheep should just live in there and eat all the time.
2 of them were just running weed whackers around the posts.
Yep.
So I'm like, whew, man, that's a lot of work.
It's too bad the sheep are missing out. They'd be fenced in. Predators couldn't get them. There's a lot of predators back there. But
They would need water.
so bring them more.
It's a long way to bring water.
Bring them
Bring
water.
them
She
water.
said, bring them water. Go.
Go ahead, you got this.
With you. Go.
Very long hose.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. So that's the solar project.
Yeah. So I think that wraps it up. Julie, do you have anything else you want to talk about solar?
No, I think that was a good description.
Okay. So we hope you like and subscribe. And if you have any questions about solar, let Julie know.
See you soon.